In today's episode, the Mark II Vauxhall Astra range for 1985. Hello and welcome back to Quarterlight, your car brochure channel, looking at car brochures from around the world for the 1960s, 70s, 80s and 1990s. It's the one you're waiting for today. We're looking at this all-range catalogue for 1985 for Vauxhall. Last week we looked at Nova. There will be a link at the end if you missed the Nova episode. Nice little range of Novas. Very mixed views with the Nova. People either hate them or love them, but there's certainly a big memory for me in the 80s. A lot of first drivers had them. Kids used to modify them. They're a bit crazy, but a pure untouched Nova yellow Vauxhall Nova SR would have been my choice of that range at that time if I was lucky enough to be able to afford one, which I weren't. Anyway, yeah, the Vauxhall Astra range. We've not looked much at the Mark II Astra, so it's a nice one to catch up with that. I am actually planning on going further with the Mark II Astra and looking at the other variations of the Astra, the rebadged versions, at a later date, so we will come back to that. But on this particular episode we're just purely looking at this brochure and the Mark II Astra, so let's throw that on the board. So this is the brochure we're looking at for this series, the Vauxhall Opel range, June to September 1985. One thing I do want to clear up from the Nova episode, and it's an interesting key point that was pointed out by one of the viewers. So base model Nova, do you know how we was talking about the very base model Ford Sierra with its dangly door mirror? Well, the base model Nova is a little bit of a quirky thing as well. It's a different door mirror than the rest of the range. So it's hard to see on this picture, but that door mirror is different than the other models. I guess it's easiest to see here. This is your base model mirror. You can just see that sort of black area at the bottom there, which, hey, might as well point out as we're here. Sorry, I know we're supposed to be looking at Astra, but if we look at this sort of area here, you can see that the mirror kind of like pivots on this little area. So basically you had to wind your window down to adjust your mirror. But all the others, including the next model up, the L, had a completely different mirror on there, which was, you can see it's been adjusted from the inside, and you can see we don't have that sort of black area where the mirror pivots on. Fascinated by base models, because surely that is more expensive to do a completely different mirror unit on the base model when it's coming down the production line. Apparently, I'm told, and certainly I believe it, the base model was using the Mark I Astra's door mirror. Who came up with that? Surely that's more expensive to tool two different mirrors in production. Base model greatness in the 80s as usual. Another point which I did know about but I actually forgot to mention, front wings on a Nova. I'm just using the base model for an example. The front wing, you can see it's got this like area up here on the hatchback, but if you look at the saloon has got a completely different wing on there, just more conventional design. Who came up with that idea? Surely things like that are more expensive to come down the production line. I don't understand the idea of doing that, but interesting, isn't it? Anyway, I won't hark on any more about the last week's episode. I will do a link at the end. Let's move on to the Mark II Astra. A fantastic start page for the Astra, isn't it? With this sort of almost like an African looking scene. I don't know where this scene is. I don't know if it's in Spain or where it is, but yeah, it looks almost like it's on a rally course, doesn't it? It says here, Astra, the new driving force, a new class leader, and a reminder it won Car of the Year 1985. And absolutely was a huge step forward from the Mark I. I always loved the Mark I for various reasons, but it was quite shocking actually when the Mark II came out with this very curvy body shell. I always much preferred the Mark II when it came out, although now looking back, I know I'm going to be in the minority. Now I actually prefer the Mark I. I don't know if that's anything to do with companies like Daewoo, who kind of like had the same design later on, but if you wanted an Astra, really you wanted the GTE. 1985. I was too young to drive, but my dad had a Triumph Acclaim, and that was a very boxy, quite an old-fashioned design really. These came out and they were just, you couldn't help but look at them, particularly in GTI guise. I'm waffling too much today, aren't I? Let's open the brochure and see where the range starts. So like the Nova last week, we're starting from the top model and working our way down. So the top of the range model really was that Astra GTE, 1800 injection, 3-door hatch, and I'm glad they've picked the main image to be white, because there was a lot of them in white, and I think they actually really suited being in white. If you notice these early ones, we've just got wheel trims, a white wheel trim, which actually looks nice, but the next model down is the Astra SR, and I kind of like preferred the wheel setup of them, but that's by the by really. And also, I seem to remember I actually had a couple of these wheel trims when I was a kid somehow. I think they had a tendency to fall off, is what I'm trying to say. So yes, unlike the Nova, we've got a GTE. Nova, we didn't have a GTE at this time, we just started with the SR, but here, yes, GTE. So let's have a look at the notes, have a look at the text, the specs, and then we'll come back to these nice images. So it starts by telling us a 3-door GTE with its amazing low drag factor of CD 0.30, which is actually a good figure. I'm sure that's got a lot to do with this much curvier design of the Mark II. It is a sports hatch with electrifying performance. Maximum speed 126, very respectable for the time of course, and acceleration 0 to 60 in 8.4 seconds, puts the GTE ahead of its rivals. So not bad figures them actually for 1985, so I'm sure they were a lot of fun in the 80s. The GTE's advanced fuel injected engine produces 115 PS, and it's matched to a sporty close ratio 5-speed gearbox. Performance Car Magazine's impressions were that the injected Astra is a splendid autobahn cruiser, the best in its class. Stability at speed is fine, proving that slippery cars need not be nervous ones. Unusual that they're using the word fine, that's a little bit, it's not sounding fabulous. Thanks to the clean shape and good seating, wind noise is unusually low. Front and rear spoilers contribute much to the car's firm road contact at high speed. The uprated suspension with mini block coil springs incorporates gas. Pressure dampers, ultra low profile wide section radials on 14-inch diameter wheels add to the GTE's terrific road adhesion. The servo assisted brakes ensure a powerful retardation and ventilated front discs and modified calipers to tame the power. In the cockpit, an advanced liquid crystal display instrument panel with electronic graphics is exclusive to the GTE. Very, very 80s, isn't it that? And we'll certainly look at that in a moment. In addition, there's a check control panel with warning lights mounted on top of the fascia. A tiltable steering column in conjunction with the optional seat height adjuster enables drivers of all proportions to attain their ideal driving position. So we'll look at the standard features. We get sports front seats with head restraints, liquid crystal display instrumentation, check control panel, 3-spoke sports steering wheel with tilt column adjustment, radio stereo cassette player with 4 speakers, 60/40 split rear seats, rear passenger compartment heating ducts, courtesy light with delay cutoff, map reading lights, 1800i 08C fuel injected engine, a close ratio 5-speed gearbox, uprated suspension with gas pressure dampers, engine oil cooler, ultra low profile tyres, uprated brakes, tailgate aerofoil, headlamp high pressure washers, electrically operated and heated door mirrors, intermittent tailgate wash wipe, tinted glass all round, laminated front windscreen with graduated tint shade band and body side mouldings. And the car we're looking at is of course an Astra GTE in polar white. GTEs in this colour feature flush wheel covers in body colour, so if you get a white one you get the body colour wheel trims, which again we'll have a look at in a moment. Sporty seats do look something actually quite nice. My issue with this is it's too much grey for me. I like how the Nova SR looks, a bit of a checkered pattern, break it up a little bit. It is a bit of a sea of grey in my opinion, and kind of like a car like this, you want a bit of colour in there. The all-important badging, and a little bit of a look at that tail spoiler and the lights and that sort of black area, which set it off quite nicely actually in white, which I think is why I like them, particularly in white. The interior, again, I'm not a huge fan of the interior of the GTE. It is a very plasticky, very grey look to it, but yes, there we have that instrument panel. Very, very 80s, isn't it? And I guess we all preferred dials really, but in the 80s it was like, ooh, look at this. Remember Knight Rider, that sort of type of idea. Interesting steering wheel design as well actually, isn't it? But the main image really reminds me how fantastic the GTE actually looked, and I actually quite the white wheel trims on the white body. Yeah, you could argue it should have alloys in this sort of segment, but Ford were throwing wheel trims on their XR3s, weren't they? Interesting design, very curvy, looked very futuristic when it came out. Looks like we're getting headlamp wash as well, and like I said before, I think the white really sets off the sort of black trim. It looks really good, and of course, like we saw before, it's a little bit of a smoked rear light, which, you know, Opel really like to do. So although this is probably the car everyone was dreaming about if you was buying a Mark II Astra in 1985, of course there is other models in the range if you couldn't quite obtain a GTE. And of course hot hatches became a bit of an issue because insurance rates kept going up, and for younger drivers they became unaffordable to use. So although in some regards it was probably aimed at a younger, probably in their 20s driver, you started finding as the insurance groups got crazy, you got an older and older person in there, which possibly looked a bit ridiculous, but I guess that's the cost of actually wanting a hot hatch in the 80s. Anyway, like I say, lots more in the range, and I quite like the next model too, so let's have a look at that. So the next model down would have been the Astra SR, which instead of an 1800 came up in with a 1600 engine, but we're still a bit of a sporty look, and actually I prefer the pattern on the SR model. There's lots of things I actually prefer about the SR model. I prefer the non-wheel trims and these sort of steel wheels. I quite like that overall look, but I think the SR was actually a rarer car than the GTE. I don't remember seeing too many SRs around, because I guess if you was buying an SR then possibly you went, well, can I borrow just a little bit more money and get a GTE, I would imagine. So possibly a rarer car today, and of course a GTE, probably it got thrashed of course, but there's probably more chance of somebody restoring a GTE, not much chance of someone restoring an SR. So today, definitely a far, far rarer car. Let's have a look at the text. So the Astra SR 1600S 3-door hatch is overtly sporty in style, with its rear spoiler stylised lettering and lower body finished in grey foil. And its performance is distinctly sporty too, with the potent 1600S engine matched to a 5-speed close ratio gearbox. Well-spaced ratios assure punchy acceleration with a top speed of 113.7, still pretty reasonable for the time. A genuinely affordable fun-to-drive car that sports front seats, cosset drivers and front passengers when exploiting the SR's sharp as a tack handling. Stylish 5.5x14 sports wheels shod with ultra-low profile 185/60 HR tyres give almost racing tyre grip. Taut suspension with uprated dampers and springs give superb road holding, as Fleet Facts magazine discovered. They said those big low profile tyres hang on forever, even in Ireland's monsoon conditions, and though the suspension is harder, it still coped very well with every nasty surprise those road surfaces produced. The wide opening, fully trimmed doors with door pockets and continental style armrests make entry easy to the comfortable rear seat. Asymmetrically split 60/40 for additional luggage space versatility. There's also the luxury of separate heater ducts for rear seat passengers, and again, at this sort of like hot hatch time, people wanted a hatchback in the UK and Europe with the folding seats. They became not only a fun to drive car, they also became a practical car because of that. And I think if you weren't doing hatchbacks, you were struggling as a manufacturer at this time. Moving down to the standard features. So for the SR, we get a 3-spoke sport steering wheel, sports front seats and padded head restraints, radio stereo cassette player with 4 speakers, backlit instruments including rev counter, instrument panel light dimmer, courtesy light delay cutoff, map reading lights, headlamps on warning buzzer, cigar lighter, 60/40 split rear seat, rear passenger compartment heater ducts, a 1600S OHC engine, close ratio 5-speed gearbox, laminated windscreen with graduated tint sideband, tinted glass, headlamp high pressure washers, body side mouldings, lower body finish in grey foil, remote control door mirrors, rear spoiler, intermittent tailgate wash wipe, locking fuel cap, dual tone horn, styled sports steel wheels with ultra low profile tyres and uprated suspension. And then the car we're looking at is indeed an Astra SR, this time in carmine red. Options at extra cost that this model has got on it, so we get a stereo radio, stereo cassette player, which is probably one I'm sure some people chose, but it's also got a tiltable steering column and rear seat belts. So there's your interior. I actually prefer this look of this one on this image. It has got a little bit of an interesting seat pattern, although again I still wish there was more colour in there than that. We get a look at the headlamp wash. A look at the tailgate of the SR with that sort of aerodynamic spoiler on the back, although I'm sure it didn't do a great deal. Showing we get rear wash wipe, but mainly showing us how big the SR badge was on the back. It's huge, isn't it? They really wanted to show you that it was a more sporty Astra, but like I say, in the 80s, if there's anything sporty in a car, they really wanted to shout about it, and I think that's why the insurance groups went a little bit crazy. Look at the dashboard, we've still got a nice sort of rev counter on there, and like I says on there, that stereo radio cassette player is an optional extra on this model. So there is the SR. I like the two-tone colours, I like the wheels, not as keen at the front end. The GTE front end looked far nicer, didn't it? This looks more like something from the commercial range. Looks very plasticky and doesn't look that special from the front, apart from it's got headlamp wash, so I possibly would have got a slightly larger lone dust to have that nicer front end personally. But like I said, I do prefer the wheels on these rather than those white wheel trims, and I prefer this two-tone colour with the little SR badge in there. Overall, not a bad model, is it? But like I say, you didn't see too many SRs, or I didn't. Maybe I just missed them, maybe there were lots of them, but I only remember the GTEs, but maybe that was because they looked so much nicer from the front. Anyway, moving down the range, brought you kind of the most upmarket model of the more regular range, and I mean non-sporty range, although you can still get a 1600S engine in this as well. So a 1300S or a 1600S is now, if you notice, a 5-door hatch, so a bit more practical, a bit more ordinary certainly when you look around it, but still a nice car all the same. Let's have a look at the text, see what spec we get. From nose to tail, the Astra GL looks every inch what the designers intended, an outstanding luxury hatch. Here's a car so obviously tailored for fast, long distance motoring in total comfort, and which is equally pleasurable to drive around town. With the choice of a 1300S or 1600S power, the GL certainly has a lot of reserve stamina. The 1300S tops 105 miles per hour, the 1600S 111. So a bit of a reminder there that we've actually lost a couple of miles per hour. 113 was a 1600S SR. So we have lost a little bit there. When Motor reported on their staff 1300 GL, they said the 1.3 litre engine is a gem, smooth, willing and very punchy. The Astra goes astonishingly well for the engine size, with surprising urge at higher speeds. No doubt thanks to the slippery shape. It's all about that slippery shape at this time. That was the more striking feature, I think. Whether it's a fast cross-country dash or a trip to the shops, there's plenty for the GL driver and passenger to admire. There's the tremendous assured-footedness and reassuring braking from the servo-assisted front disc rear drum setup. Then there's the quietness stemming partly from the ultra-stylish 5-door aerodynamic body with a remarkably low drag coefficient of 0.3. Remember, the GTE was 0.30 with all those sort of like aero bits on there. The interior is equally smart with all the equipment expected of a Vauxhall GL model, and a lot more besides. Lifting the tailgate on its gas-assisted struts reveals a capacious luggage area, made even larger by folding down either or both sections of the 60-40 split rear seat to give up to 35.3 cubic feet of fully usable load space, 48.9 cubic feet gross. And if you're tempted to add even more luxury, you could consider such extra cost options as electric front and rear windows, higher pressure headlamp washers and sliding tilting glass sunroof. So we don't get those washers on the lights, obviously. That was seen as a more sporty feature at the time. With more than a touch of original thinking in its makeup, the Astra GL 5-door hatchback, with its outstanding refinements and luxury qualities, is a class leader in every respect. That brings us to the standard features, which include tinted glass all round, laminated front windscreen with graduated tint shade band, remote control door mirrors, intermittent tailgate wash wipe, twin rear fog lamps, locking fuel cap, flush wheel covers, body side mouldings, mosaic cloth trim, mono radio stereo cassette player, 4 speakers, integral centre console, headlamps on warning buzzer, backlit instruments including rev counter, instrument panel light dimmer, quartz clock, cigar lighter, trip odometer, tiltable steering column, courtesy lights with delay cut off, map reading lights, padded front seat head restraints, height adjustable front seat belts, continental style front door armrests, 60-40 split rear seat, rear passenger compartment heater ducts. So overall, yeah, not bad spec, is it, the GL? The one we're looking at is in silver. Options at extra cost include rear seat belts and metallic paint. Incidental illustration below shows wiper spindles recessed for safety. Ooh. So interior, I'm going to call it dull, to be honest with you. Got some nice headrests in there. I'm sure the seat covers were actually quite nice for the GL, but it's not an exciting interior, is it, with all that grey. And then we look at the rear there, if I can tune the camera in there. Give you an idea, yeah, it's keep fit windows all round, unless you option it to have electric, of course. There is your excitement of the recessed spindles. Your dash, a little bit of a two-tone going on there, and then the car itself, your Astra GL. Notice all the wheel trims are different on the various different models. Nothing really shares the same wheel trim, interestingly enough. Doesn't look that exciting in silver, but like I say, a nice spec car for its time. So moving down the range really brings the popular model. I think there were more Astra L than anything else. Really a good price point. It also gives you an idea of how it looked quite nice from the rear actually. I always quite like the Mark II rear end of that hatch. Again, we'll do the same thing. We'll read the specs, see what standard equipment we get on this lower model, come back to the images, and then we'll go to the bottom of the range. So we noticed quite a choice for the L model. That was really why it was so popular. We get a 1300S, 1600S, and now we're brought by with a diesel, a 1600 diesel. It's available as a 5-door hatch, or you can have it in an estate. Now for the estates, because obviously this episode's going on a bit, we'll probably treat all the estates in one final episode, I think. But anyway, with a range of hatchbacks and estates, both in 3 and 5-door versions, a power choice of 1300S and 1600S OHC petrol engines, plus the advanced 1600 diesel. The attractions of the L specification are considerable. The L models not only look good but provide exhilarating performance too. For example, the 1600S hatchback's top speed is 111.8. We seem to have gained 0.8 of a miles per hour on the L. Whether that's because the testing wasn't great, or was it because it had less weight, because it was a bit more stripped out? I don't know. It accelerates from 0 to 60 in under 11.5 seconds. When Watcar put the 1300S through its paces, they said the 1300's acceleration performance feels more like everyone else's 1600S. The 1300S hatch with 4-speed gearbox stretches fuel consumption to 54.3 mpg at a constant 56 miles per hour on government fuel test figures, and achieves an average consumption from the 3 tests of 42.9 mpg. The 5-speed gearbox, optional at extra cost on all L models, provides further improvements in economy. The 1600S hatch, for instance, can also return 54.3 mpg at a constant 56 miles per hour. Seems like there's something not right with the tests. I would be surprised if the two engines achieved exactly the same mpg. I'm wondering if the 1600S with that 5-speed was a little bit better, but they didn't really want to say that. I'm not sure. And on most models, slightly faster acceleration. Extra cost options such as automatic transmission available with 1300S, 1600S power units and power assisted steering. 1600S, 1600D models make for easier driving. The Astra L's impressive interior, trimmed in twill cloth, displays a high level of equipment, including the plus feature of 60/40 split rear seat, 50/50 on the estate, adding to the load carrying versatility. Other features include a radio stereo cassette player with digital frequency display and 4 speakers, quartz clock, cigar lighter, trip odometer, headlamp on warning buzzer and height adjustable front seat belts. 5-door model only, adding to the overall refinement. So standard equipment's obviously going to go down. We get a kind of like a cheaper cloth, a twill cloth interior trim, see-through front seat head restraints, now a mono radio stereo cassette player with 4 speakers, 60/40 split for the hatch, 50/50 for the estate, full door trim with cloth inserts, front door pockets, continental style front door armrests, illuminated glove box and load area, dipping rear view mirror, quartz clock, integral center console, trip odometer, headlamp on warning buzzer, height adjustable front seat belts, 5-door model only, hinged rear load compartment cover for the hatch, flush wheel covers, remote control driver's door mirror, remote control passenger door mirror, estate, laminated windscreen, intermittent tailgate wash wipe, tailgate push lock, twin rear fog lamps, locking fuel cap and body side protection mouldings. And then the car we're looking at is a Astra L hatch in silver blue, which is actually a nice colour. Optional extra cost include the 5-speed gearbox on this one, remote control passenger door mirror, electrically operated front and rear windows, and a metallic paint. So this is an unusual model actually. So this is an Astra L, but they've thrown on the electric windows, passenger door mirror, metallic paint. It's a well optioned car. They've even optioned it with the 5-speed box. So yeah, an unusual one. Possibly you might have wanted to move to the GL and added the electric windows, I don't know, but anyway, here it is. Maybe a good one to buy on the second-hand market, this one. Anyway, let's look at the interior. There we go, we can see the keep fit windows have now gone. I like this blue interior actually. May have been tempted by this one actually. A bit cheaper and a little bit of blue in there, kind of livens it up a bit. We've got the A-frame headrest, we've got electric windows, 5-speed gearbox. Would have been a nice one actually. There is your interior, no rev counter on this one of course. Zoomed into the back end of this base, well not base model but the L model to show you how it's badged. So Vauxhall Astra L. So you can see the fog lamps kind of like in the bumper. Now car manufacturers are getting used to having to put fog lamps in there rather than just dangling them off. They are a bit more incorporated. And like I said, this silver blue colour actually is a much nicer colour in my opinion than just the flat silver. Also notice again a different wheel trim. So then the final model, pretty big range actually for the time for the Astra. So we're getting to the base model now and its strangeness. I'm not sure, like I said before, I think if you was a private owner you would have just spent that little bit more and crept up to the L. In my opinion, although I must admit now we're getting these lower models, the colours are a lot nice. I like leaf green, it's one of my favourites, so maybe I might have been tempted if I saw this one in the showroom. But yeah, pretty stripped out model. We can see all the body side mouldings have been dropped on, and again a different wheel trim now, possibly the most hideous wheel trim I've ever seen. I don't know if it was particularly ugly on purpose, I'm not sure, but you could get it in a wide range of levels. I'll just zoom to the text. So we'll notice no 1600 for the base model. We've even dropped still further to a 1200, so you can have as a 1200S, 1300S 3-door hatch, 1200S, 1300S 5-door hatch, and a 1300S 3-door estate. Tells us there's an exceptional wide choice built around this price leading Astra. 3 and 5-door hatchbacks with 1200 or 1300S engine plus a 1300S 3-door estate. When road testing the 1.2 hatch in a rugged area of Ireland, Fleet Facts magazine found that getting comfortable in the driving seat was no problem, with fore and aft movement and back rake adjustment, steering wheel pedals and gear lever were all in the right place. On the move, they considered the steering also light, and this combined with a commendable small turning circle made close quarters handling very easy. As regards the suspension, they found it a good compromise, absorbing the appalling Irish road surfaces very well indeed. Noise levels seemed very reasonable too, they concluded. Now, considering this was a test for the 1200, the 1200 was never really mentioned, so maybe going to think that's possibly it wasn't so complimentary about that. The brochure itself talks about the 1200 though by saying the 1200S engine with Weber carburetor develops 55 PS for brisk performance, and with the optional 5-speed gearbox, yes, you could still option a 5-speed, achieves an impressive 58.8 mpg at a constant 56 miles per hour. On government fuel test figures, and it's important to think about the 1200 because really if you're getting the base model, the chances are you can get the base engine because you really are counting the pennies if you're picking this model. But like I say, you could option for the 1300. It tells us in the hatch the free revving 1300S attains 105.6 miles per hour and returns 56.5 mpg, also at a constant 56 miles per hour, with the 5-speed gearbox optional at extra cost. Astra hatchbacks and estates also offer equally attractive space figures, even seating 5. The hatchback gives 13.8 cubic feet of usable luggage space under the hinged rear load cover. Fold down the rear seat and there's a generous 35.3 cubic feet of usable space. The Astra estate is even more impressive. It offers the most space in its class with 16.6 cubic feet with rear seat up, and that's measured only to the glass line. Fold down the rear seat and there's a cavernous 53.7 cubic feet of usable space, 63.6 cubic feet gross, and that's more than some much larger estates can manage. So standard features for the base model, we get a less desirable seat trim, this Oxford cloth trim. Continental style front door armrests are still included though. Full door trim, see-through front head restraints, so at least we're still getting the head restraints. Height adjustable front seat belts, 5-door models only. Push button radio with 2 speakers, so a lesser radio with only 2 speakers now. 2-speed windscreen wipers with intermittent wipe. Carpeted hinged load compartment cover, hatch. Flush wheel covers. Remote control driver's door mirror. Remote control passenger door mirror for the estate. Laminated windscreen, halogen headlamps. Tailgate push lock. Heated rear window. Locking fuel cap. Tailgate wash wipe. Twin rear fog lamps. And we get reversing lights, because we have to add all these silly little features because the list would be too tiny for the base model, I guess. Looking at the images, or actually we'll look at what we're looking at first, I guess. So we're looking at an Astra hatch in leaf green, again a very nice colour. Optional extra cost include the AC441 radio stereo cassette player, so this one has been optioned up a little bit. So seat cover's not as nice now. So we still at least do get a remote control driver's door mirror for the base model Astra, although only on the door for the driver, no passenger unless you get the estate. Interior, we got a nicer radio in there, not much more I can say. We look at the steering wheel design, looks a little bit drab. So here is the car itself, and yes, they've chosen the 3-door hatch. Which is nice to see that in 3-door budget guys. They've chosen that leaf green. I think it lifts it a little bit. If it was in white, it would be a very forgettable car, I think. Wheel trims, for my money, do look deliberately horrible, actually. They look possibly the worst wheel trim design I've ever seen. But of course, take them off, put a higher spec wheel trim on there, I would say. I suggest, but they've really tried to make it look base with that wheel trim. Very dull front end, of course, and yeah, we've got no rubbing strips down there, so of course you park your car next to somebody else in the supermarket, come back, it's got a completely different rippled design when you come back. And then of course we have got a picture. We've been talking about the estates and which models the estates can be had in. Strange that you can't get anything higher than an L at this time though. I think the main problem with the Astra estate for me, they look too much like the commercial vehicles. I think that was the drawback, but a very practical shape. But like I said, we'll do a special episode at the end, I think, and we'll cover all the estates because this episode is going on a little bit now. I have to add this image though, don't I, before I do wrap it up. A Group A Astra GTE. So there we go, the big Mark II Astra range for 1985. It's a big one, been a big episode, so I appreciate everyone who's watched to this point. Always appreciated. I'm going to wrap it up quickly because we are running out of time, of course. So we'll end it as we always do by saying please do comment. Love all your comments, so please keep them coming in. I always learn a little bit as well from you guys. Very knowledgeable, those regulars, thank you. We'll end it by saying, please, before you go, don't forget to subscribe. That's completely free, and give it a thumbs up. Again, love to hear your comments. Please do come again soon. This little box down here will be for the series, so if you're not seeing the Nova, please click on that, and eventually the whole series will be in this little box. But thank you so much for watching. Please do take care. We'll see you again very soon. All the best, and goodbye.